r/ask Reddit. Teachers of Reddit, what was the biggest student meltdown you ever witnessed? We were on a class trip on the way back to school when one of my colleagues pointed to a boy who was leaning against the subway doors, upset about something. I walked over and learned he had left his backpack at the movie theater and was very upset. I tried to encourage him but he didn't care. Eventually we are at our train stop and everyone is getting off but this kid is still leaning against the subway doors opposite side had opened. Doors are about to close and only he and I remain from our group. I tell him please don't freak out but I'm gonna take you off the train, we have to go. He immediately starts struggling but I'm a big guy so I get him off. As train starts pulling away he is trying to walk back towards it and we are all like WTF, be careful, train is pulling out of station. Eventually I grab him and drag him backwards to the ground and yell at co-workers to get kids out of here. As they are walking away he is trying to crawl towards the open subway tracks, presumably to kill himself. This kid is 12 and I'm a giant man but I am struggling to subdue him. I wrestled in high school so I know how to keep control of someone on the ground but he is really determined to get to those tracks. I'm still struggling with him and another train comes by but I keep him on platform. People are by now asking him if he is okay and eyeing me like WTF are you doing to this child? Eventually I yell to my co-worker to go get the police and she runs off in tears. Now I'm alone struggling with this child on the ground and I assume it's about to get real but as soon as he hears mention of police he starts calming down and begs me to let him go, promising to be good. After a minute of not letting go I talk him into standing up with me and I take him away while aggressively holding his hand and putting my arm around him. We breathlessly walk into school and I immediately take him to main office where a small crisis team has gathered. Once he is safely sitting in a chair I collapse into one as well and start processing my ordeal. His family comes to school to pick him up but we have to mandatorily send him to hospital for psychiatric evaluation. Couple days later he is back in school like nothing ever happened. We had a special bond after that and he always came to my classroom to check on me all year even though I wasn't his teacher. I don't work at that school anymore but I'm heading back at end of this year to see those students graduate and hope to find him happier and healthier. You guys ever talk about it? I wonder if it's BC his parents are super strict. My dad literally breathes and eats school. Like if you're not talking education then why are you even speaking? One day I missed the bus and I actually jumped off the roof of the pool house the bus stop was near because I'd rather die than face my dad about it. But the drop was like 15 featuring and it was into grass. I broke my ankle and lied there till the kindergarten bus car, e-bike to drop off the AM students and pick up the PM. Wasn't suicidal, just deathly afraid of my dad. My dad was strict too but it manifested in a different way for me. Once he was angry at me for forgetting my sparring gear when I went to taekwondo class. He yelled at me for it when he picked me up and yelled the whole way home while I sat pale and silent in the back of the minivan. Then when we got home, he yelled at me some more until my mom saw my arm, which was strangely swollen, and said, "What the heck happened to you?" I'd fallen during the taekwondo class and it turned out that I broke my wrist. Didn't want to say anything though because the yelling made me sad and tired and stoic but in a weird unhealthy way, not in a cool stiff upper lip way. We were meeting in the computer lab for a week because the students were working on projects. One of my students was hanging out with his girlfriend before class started. I was in the classroom, so I wasn't paying any attention to the conversation. He walks into the room and he was fuming. I asked him what was wrong and he didn't respond. He went to his computer and punched the screen. I tried to calm him down and he picked up the table, which had 5 computers on it, and tipped it over. I got the rest of the students out and called security. He absolutely destroyed the computer lab. He was suspended for the rest of the year, was banned from prom and graduation, and his parents had to pay for the damages. His girlfriend apparently cheated on him. I heard they got back together after that, but it was never confirmed. Back in my day if a kid punched a computer screen he would end up with a set of broken knuckles. Back in my day we called punching a computer programming. I taught English in Korea to middle and high school students. I like to walk up and down the aisles between the desks occasionally during class just to make sure that everybody is paying attention and not using their phones. One day during a 7th grade class I walked to the very last row and looked down. I see a nice girl, completely average in every way, using an X-Acto knife to carve up her arms. Both arms were bleeding profusely and had about 30 horizontal cuts up to her elbows. She tried to cover them up, but I walked up on her too quickly. I grabbed the assistant teacher and whispered to her what was going on without any of the other students noticing, and she took the girl to the nurse. Not an overt meltdown, but something was wrong there. Damn. When you get to the point you'll do it in public at risk of being caught, things are going pretty badly. Hope she got the help she needed, but I don't know how mental illnesses are treated there. School isn't a great place in South Korea. I worked as a second grade teacher at an elementary school for a couple years. One of the more talented girls, it's hard to tell who is really smart at that age, but she always seemed on top of things, had no dad, and lived with her mom, who it turned out was a bit of a heroin addict. One Monday she came into school looking just totally shell-shocked. I asked her what was wrong and she wouldn't say. This lasted till the Tuesday of the next week. Another student who was always trying to get under anyone's skin made fun of this girl for her mom's addiction, and the girl just lost it. She tried to punch the other student and just started screaming. Once we had calmed her down, we asked her what had set her off, and she explained that her mom had been using the needles again last week and had gotten high, but that she was still sleeping on the bed. We weren't sure what this meant, but as is procedure, we called the police, who went with CPS to check it out. Turns out, her mom OD'd the weekend before, and the girl had no idea she was dead, so she just kept doing her thing. That was pretty terrifying. This happened 10 years ago, when I worked as a primary school teacher. I was teaching year 2, 8-ish-year-olds. At the time, one student stood out. He was a very bright kid, could do mental arithmetic as quickly as me if not faster, but he was also extremely weird. No eye contact, did odd repetitive stuff by himself at recess, like timing his sprints across a certain section of playground over and over. He had a few less odd friends who tolerated him, but he was mostly bullied for being so strange. He usually reacted stoically or defensively, but one day he absolutely snapped. At recess, he was being teased by a popular girl for reading so much, and she dared him to punch her when he got upset. Apparently today was the day, because he did, more than once, all directly to the stomach. Probably 5-6 good kid-sized blows before I reached them, and he snapped out of it and stopped. He got put through the ringer for that, as most teachers disliked him as well. I tried to explain he was constantly bullied and usually non-violent. It got taken into consideration and he was still suspended for a week. From the kid's point of view, totally worth it. Beating up a bully, a sign of deterrence for a week of suspension. Man, I would have paid to stay at home as a result of breaking rules, but my school system does not suspend students at all. Yo, just gonna put it out there that those are all classic, stereotype symptoms of autism. Struggling with eye contact, extraordinarily intelligent, especially if only on certain subjects, obsession with repetitive actions, target for bullying, has nervous angry breakdowns when goaded into it or overly stimulated by outside sources. This is only a short list of some symptoms. BTW, and not everyone shows all of these if they have autism. Source: I'm autistic, but not debilitatingly so, just obsessed with certain subjects, socially inept, and an anxious wreck. In high school I had a laser pointer in class and was being a dong, shining it around the room. The boy next to me starts freaking out, saying, "Keep it away from me, keep it away from me." So of course, being a dong, I start shining it on him. He screams, "You're going to give me cancer," and stabs me in the arm with a pencil. We both got sent to the principal. The principal was pissed at me for having a laser pointer, but the whole being stabbed thing kind of took the heat off me. The kid who stabbed me started crying and moaning about how his life was ruined over something so stupid. The principal just seemed embarrassed and disgusted, just told us both to leave. I had a first grader that was hot. We did not have air conditioning, so he stood up, knocking over his chair. That wasn't enough, so he threw the chair, then walked to my desk and cleared it off with a swipe of his arm. After that, he pushed the intercom button calling the office, and before they could answer he stepped into the hall to sit down to wait for the principal. Once the principal arrived to take him to the air-conditioned office, the student bit the principal on the arm. We heard the hollering as we were trying to clean up. He was suspended for 3 days and got to stay home in his air-conditioned apartment. I had a first grader that was hot. You're now on a list. I had a class that integrated some of the special education students for 2 hours a day. We were having a holiday party, so the kids got to push their desks together and have snacks and watch a movie. I'm sitting at the desk grading papers when I hear the class getting kind of noisy. I ask what's going on and someone mentions that Trevor doesn't like this part of the movie. Trevor is a 12-year-old boy on the autism spectrum. He's a very large boy, about 6'0" and well over 200 pounds. I tell Trevor to come on over to my desk and he does. He says he doesn't like when people sing in movies and starts covering his ears. I tell him I will fast forward this part and he flips his shit. Apparently, he hates fast forwarding more than he hates singing in movies. He picks up a desk and whips it against the wall near a set of windows. Flips over every desk he can get his hand on, all while screaming like someone is attacking him. He's just trashing the room and starts going after the kids. I yell for one of the kids to run and get his main teacher and another to get the principal. Trevor pushes a few kids hard enough to make them fall down and then grabs a girl by throat and starts choking her. He has a look on his face of a madman and he's sweating profusely and turning red while this girl is trying to fight him off. I get over there and am able to pry his hands off with the help of a few students. Trevor then turns to me and in a crazy, deep voice says, "I will find your house and hide under your bed until you come home. I will rape and murder you," and laugh while I'm doing it. His teacher came in and was able to pull him away and Trevor just stared at me the entire way out laughing like crazy. It was scary as duck. Taught special ed. Had a kid throw a chair through the window, break it, jump through window and run away. Man, I do not miss teaching. Was he a mute American Indian? Adding this because it's comical and not sad, like so many others on this thread. We had a girl in our school with Down syndrome who was a tiny shrimp of a thing, skinny, short, and fast. Her appointed aides were older and not in the best shape, so she gave them a run for their money. Often, the kiddos in her classroom come down to take care of recycling and such every day in all the hallways. And one day she must have been pretty mad at her aide, because she gave her a good long side eye and then took off for the exit doors in our wing. I'm a regular ed English teacher who was just on my way to make copies and saw her sprint away toward the doors. I literally knelt down, hooked her around the waist. She was looking back at her aide, smiling, and basically hugged her into a stop saying, "I don't think you're supposed to go out those doors." Her aides laughed and laughed, and she just looked at me, horrified that I dare impede her break from freedom. Repeat this scenario about 8 or 9 times over 2 years. I think I hooked that kid in a dead sprint more often than anyone else. When I retire, I want to come back and work with these kids. They're a hoot. I've gotten pretty good at snagging kids on the run. The fun part about working with the under 5 crowd is they don't know you can anticipate their moves. Obligatory, not a teacher, but in 7th grade in gym class we were playing floor hockey. This one kid, Jack, was having a rough game. A different kid who played hockey tried to jump the ball over Jack but hit him in the forehead, so he freaked out and started slashing at people's ankles. The gym teachers finally started to call out his name to get him to sit out. The catch is that one of the teachers was calling him Jake instead of Jack. Cue the meltdown. He whips the hockey stick at the teachers, nearly hitting one of them, and yells, "My name isn't Jake," and begins to cry. He finally calmed down and the gym teachers had a chance to talk to him. Pretty sure he got a detention for it. That was one of the more interesting days of that year. I worked in a really rough school and have tons of stories. One 3rd grader didn't want to line up for the water fountain after a hot recess. He wanted to jump the line and get his water first. Well, my colleague tells him to get to the back of the line, BC no cutting, and the little ducker picked up a chair, whipped it at my friend and shattered the glass in the classroom door. Kid didn't even flinch or act like he felt like he was in it or anything. 2 more, this one is funny. I was teaching science to the 5th graders. I am white, so my students, 98% African American, loved it when I would flush red with exercise, embarrassment, or even from something rubbing my neck, like a seat belt, and leaving a red mark. The kids were fascinated by my ability to be red. Anyway, teaching science, kid raises his hand, and completely off topic goes, "Hey, Miss So-and-so, are you a virgin?" Well, you can imagine I was so shocked, and immediately turned bright red. So then the whole class starts laughing. It was pretty funny, so I laughed too. Little shit. Last one. Huge girl. 12 years old, 160 pounds, 5 feet 9 in my 5th grade class. This chick was 100% developed and matured. Another girl 5th grader 4 feet 4, 55 pounds maximum. Not even close to puberty. These two get in a fist fight right before lunch. Obvious the big girl is murdering the smaller one. There is a policy about not getting involved, but big girl was starting to slam little girl's head into the metal lockers, so I felt I had to intervene. I grab little girl by the waist and pull her out of big girl's reach and place her to the side. Big girl comes at me like a raging bull. She punched me square in my mouth. Hurt like hell. Busted my lip a little. The whole class is like ooh. In the quiet I said to her, "Stop. Do you realize you've just hit a teacher?" She just jumped at me and ripped a good sized chunk of my hair out. No joke. She got suspended for a couple of days, but that's it. They asked if I wanted to press charges, but I was scared to be a white teacher pressing charges against a 12-year-old girl in that neighborhood. She was removed from my class at my request though. I teach middle school and have witnessed many meltdowns. A favorite was a new girl in my class. She threw one of my calculators across the room, so I told her to go the office. She went out yelling, swearing, and I just stood there non-reactive. Then she went to slam the door on her way out, or at least she tried. Can't slam a safety door. Self-closer. Couldn't help but have a laugh at that. There was a girl in my high school who tried that multiple times. She would have an argument with her boyfriend in class, then try to storm out and slam the door for dramatic effect. At first usually tried not to escalate the situation by laughing, but it became a running joke. Hoo boy. I used to work after school and summer kids activities programs, and there was always something. Probably the one that was saddest and most affecting to me was the little girl who had been abandoned by both her parents, drugs yay, and was living with her grandma and her severely disabled and handicapped older brother that required 24/7 care. Her grandma was kind and supportive, but had her hands full with the brother and just couldn't give this girl what she needed. No one could. The girl was always sweet and well behaved, until something minor would happen to upset her equilibrium. Like she'd play catch and miss the ball a few times, or she'd paint something and get a paint stain on her shirt, and then the 180-degree switch to raging hell demon. Most of the time she'd turn her rage and pain on herself. On a field trip she lost a coloring book and responded by bashing her face into a wall until my assistant physically pinned her down on the floor. Another day she got paint on her hat and responded by raking her nails down her face and across her arms until we restrained her and screaming herself hoarse. Every single day at lunch she had to be coaxed to eat anything at all. Her pain was so present and huge, though usually well masked. Sometimes some unwitting kid would get in the way, and she would just go feral and start screaming and biting. I dunno. She was, most of the time, such a lovely and good-hearted little person. It was heartbreaking. I wanted to sweep her up and take all her pain away, or shoot her damn selfish loser parents, though they had probably done the best thing for her, under the circumstances. It's been at least 10 years. I still think about her, and hope she's okay. Had a special needs kid with a para in class. This para and I struggled to get this kid to participate in class. No matter what I did lesson plan wise, he would not bite. I guess the para was having a bad day and decided to scold the kid for not participating. I can kind of see this cluster duck of a situation brewing out of the corner of my eye, but I have confidence in the para to handle it. While I'm explaining an activity, the student stands up, slams his belongings to the ground and shouts, "Duck you homosexual old man." He was referencing the para. The entire class and I stared at this man. I looked at the para and his jaw was to the ground. I was a young teacher, I literally didn't know how to handle this situation. The student then grabbed some of his stuff, leaving behind worksheets and other small stuff. He walks out the door and slams it shut. The para runs after him and they decide to have a blow-up argument outside my classroom. I had to shout to cover up the conversation. Once the activity got started, I begged the students to talk to cover up the argument. I stepped out into the hallway to figure out what on earth was going on. I step out to this student, shirtless, his bag and stuff tossed around the hallways, and this student has his fists up. The para got him into a chokehold until the student calmed down to the point of not fighting. The student got suspended for a few days for attempting to fight. I was so shocked and had no idea what to do. First time as a teacher I felt helpless. Thankfully the para was trained and could handle that student. I teach 2, 3, and 4-year-olds. A 2-year-old with a language barrier spoke Chinese at home, had a complete meltdown over an imaginary drop of pee in her underwear. I was subbing in her classroom during nap time and she went ballistic and I had no idea why. She peed on the toilet and then refused to pull her underwear and pants up. Cue me trying to assist another co-worker with wrestling her to get her pants on in the bathroom. Nope. She proceeded to yell, cry, flail, and then finally strip naked. I figured I'd let her calm down a bit by giving her some alone time, but no, she decides to run around the classroom. It was during nap time, and the last straw was when she started scooting her bare ass on the floor. I had had enough and had to yell down the hall to the office where her normal teachers were. Turns out they knew why she was upset, but I didn't. I've never had to yell for help before that or since. Also, one time this 3-year-old got upset because he wanted to sit next to his friend for snack, but another kid already sat down. So this 3-year-old muscular pillar of a little human started stomping his feet really hard and yelling and wouldn't walk away from the situation when prompted. In trying to defuse the situation before it got violent, I tried to physically pick him up, but he flailed around so much and he weighed a ton that I couldn't. I ended up just restraining his arms. I have never not been able to pick up a kid before. I think he weighs 49 pounds and has defined abs and I'm 105 pounds. Wasn't the teacher, was the student. Year 7. I had been diagnosed with severe GAD and after all year of being bullied every day I had developed depression and had a history of self-harm. One day during English class I asked to be excused to go get a drink of water. Before the teacher could say anyone, one of my main bullies said, "What, so you can go cut yourself?" I looked at the English teacher with a frown expecting them to say something, but they just stared at me with a blank expression. I exploded. I was so angry that the school all year had done nothing to support me and stop this bullying. I ran out of the class, grabbed my bag and walked home. I ended up getting after school detention for skipping school and the guy wasn't even spoken to. It was my first year teaching out of college and it wasn't the safest of schools. It was my French 1 class with almost 40 students. I had a student throw a desk in my general direction because of frustration from another student. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.